Welcome to She's a Full-On Monet, a digital lifestyle magazine for women. Every week, our editor-in-chief, Kelly Castillo, along with Megan Block and special guests, participate in a deep dive discussion about recent articles and topics we have covered. We invite you to become part of our community where everyone's welcome. You can totally sit with us.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to She's a Full-On Monet. I am your host, Kelly, and I have with me, as always, Megan.
Hello. Hi.
Hi.
You look beautiful. Was just telling you that, but you look beautiful.
Thank you so much. I have a very busy day today, and then we're leaving for New York tomorrow to see my daughters. So that's exciting.
What's the weather like in New York right now? Do you know?
It's nice today, but it's going to be kind of cold and rainy while we're there. So
okay. I've never been to New York. I have family in New York, and one of my best friends lives in New York, but I've never been. And I know that it's like, there's really nice times to go, and then there's insane times to go. So
yeah, the summer is like crazy muggy hot, and then there's always like a month in the winter, usually January, February, where it's like blizzards. So
how long has she been in New York now?
Since November.
Okay, so she hasn't seen all the seasons yet.
No. She's been through the blizzard part, but she hasn't done a summer in New York yet.
The blizzard part is the hardest, though. I feel like, I know we're getting off topic, but I feel like there's like a whole new, you think you know what you need to pack for that type of weather, and then you buy all the things.
Yeah.
My friend Nina, when she moved there, she was not prepared for blizzard weather, and it was like crazy. So
yeah, it's a whole adjustment for California girls for sure.
All right. Well, I'm ready to chat about what we're here for, but
yeah,
have fun on your trip.
Thank you. So today, we're going to talk about something that it's kind of like a buzzword right now. I feel like I've been hearing it a lot, either in social media or in news articles, on TV. Like it seems to be kind of the catchphrase right now. And I think it's the idea of it, something that's been around forever, but we have new terminology, I guess is what it is. So we're talking today about holding space for someone. And that's one of those can be kind of cringy, like in quotation marks, holding space for someone. But I think it is an important distinction from, saying being there for someone or being supportive of someone, because I think, in my opinion, at least, holding space for someone is a bit different. And it's not something that comes naturally to probably very many people. I know it doesn't to me. I don't think it's, that natural of a thing to do. Mm-hmm. And I know I've struggled with this for myself, especially when it comes to my kids, because I'm a natural problem solver. And, when they're struggling with something or something is causing them pain or they're going through something, I want to jump in. I want to fix it. I want to, that's how we're supposed to be as moms.
It's what we do. It's what we see them from when they're tiny. We just want to fix all their little problems, but then we start to realize like, oh, we can't keep, that's not the proper way to do it. Right. And it's like, it's so backwards thinking, but you have to remind yourself.
Well, and now my kids are all adults, and your relationship with them really changes when they become adults, and it's no longer appropriate for you to jump in at every moment with all your advice and all your, problem solving. And you have to let them problem solve for themselves. And you have to, sometimes they don't want your advice. They know they can figure it out. They just, you're their person that they talk to.
Yeah.
So I think one of the hardest things, in my opinion, for holding space for someone is not to jump in and problem solve or not to offer like your own experiences as a way to connect. I see a lot of people do that, and it can be very off-putting when you're going through something to have someone jump in and tell you how they went through something too. I'm
doing it right now. I'm so guilty of that. And I try and remind myself that, because when you want to find something to like relate to so that the person you're talking to understands that you understand. But sometimes it's so cringy and inappropriate, like especially when somebody like loses someone or like they have going through or like just went through a breakup. You're like, I remember when I lost I'm like, it's not this, like I get what you're doing, but it's not, and it's, but I do it all the time, and I try and catch myself because I know from being on the other side of it, it is not being received in the way you want it to be received.
Yeah. And I believe that everyone's intentions with this are good. They're just wanting to say, hey, you're not alone. I've felt that way too. And you feel a connection to that person by sharing something vulnerable of yourself, but it can make it be about you when it needs to just be about them. So
yeah.
We're basically talking about just when someone is struggling with something, whether it's a grief, a loss, depression, a breakup, something, you know, to them that feels super catastrophic at the time. It's just basically existing in that space with that person in a way that is supportive. You don't ask anything of them. You don't even not even like questions, like you don't offer, so that they are not alone when they're feeling that way.
Absolutely.
And whatever that person needs without them. And the big key is that they ask. I mean, if you're on fire, having to ask someone to throw water on you feels like adding insult to injury, right?
Right.
Do kind of whatever. And the big key is that they don't have, so you just kind of do the things that need to be done without them asking you to do that. Or if nothing needs to be done, you just show up. You just show up and you just say, hey, you know what? I'm going to show up in your driveway every morning at 8:30. And if you want to go for a walk, we'll go for a walk. And if you don't, just don't come out. No big deal, but I'll be there every day. Like that kind of, that's kind of what we're talking about when we're talking about holding space.
Yeah.
So it is different. It is different in that, you know, when your friends are talking to you about something going on in their life, a lot of times there is a back and forth about shared experiences. And there is, oh, my friend went through that. Here's what she tried and it helped. That is a different thing.
Yeah.
That is important.
I just feel like as humans, we all kind of want the other person to know that we're not coming from like a completely, I have no clue what I'm talking about perspective. I think we just want them to know like we have like some experience to like be there with you. Do you know what I mean? Like it's just, we're not completely blind to it and we're here, but sometimes like that, they don't care. They just want you, you know, they don't care if you're an expert at the moment. They don't need to know that you've been through it or have an example that you can relate to. They just, you know, but it's like a hard thing to remember. It takes such maturity, you know?
It does. And that idea of holding space for someone you don't need to have qualifications to do that. No. You don't have to have been through something similar. Or, you know, one of the things that really grinds my gears on some things is that if you've been through something that feels super personal to you and specific to you, and someone says, oh, I know exactly how you feel. Do you know exactly how I feel? Because we're not the same person and the circumstances are not exactly the same.
Even if the circumstances were exactly the same. Like I've, you know, when I lost my mom, I've had people who have lost their mom, you know, like, oh, I know exactly how you feel. Like, even if we lost our moms in the same exact way, my mom's different than your mom. You'd have no idea my life experience and what I've been through and what the type of relationship we have. So like every situation as identical as it can be is still unique, you know? And
absolutely. And then the relationships, like you said, are so unique that everybody has different feelings of loss, different regrets, different things unsaid, different, you know, memories that they have to every time will be triggered by certain events of the year. It is very, very personal and individual.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that makes it harder. But I think, I don't want to dissuade anyone from doing this for someone if we're making it seem like there's all these rules. It's not really that. I think
it's always better to show that you care than nothing. Just know that sometimes when you're saying it, you know, like it turns it around and makes the person feel like they have to now have it be about you, you know, like maybe they didn't know you lost your friend that way. And now they're asking questions about your friend when really it was supposed to be about them at that moment. You know what I mean? Like they feel almost, you know, morally obligated to ask questions and show that they're there for you as well. When the whole entire initial reason you did it was to show them that you're there for them, you know?
That's exactly what it is.
Selfish. It looks selfish, but we understand that in the core of it, it's the least selfish thing. We're not saying it's selfish. It's just, this is how we receive things as humans, you know?
Yeah. And I'm going to use an example, but I'm not going to name the person because I don't want to call them out on this. I have somebody in my life who, when I'm going through something, if I feel vulnerable and I want to share it and talk about it, it always like devolves into a situation where even though I'm going through something, I end up having to comfort them at the end of the day. And so I get to the point where I just stop sharing. I just stop needing that person in that way, because I've realized that they're just not capable of being there for me like that. Whatever I'm struggling with, my emotions and my feelings make them so uncomfortable that then I'm comforting them. And what's the point of that? Like, not only did I not get what I needed, but now I've had to, the little tiny bit of emotional energy I had left in my reservoir, I'm having to expend comforting someone else.
And you said it right there. That's the thing, is we're also watching how the people in our lives are reacting to these moments, and then we're making mental notes on, who to go to the next time and who not to go to and what to say and what not to say. And then they're like, well, why didn't you say anything to me? Well, like, this is your actions prove why your words mean nothing. You know what I mean? Like,
as much as I know that person's intentions are good and I care about that person, they're not my safe space in that way. They just can't be. So that's something that maybe you try that vulnerability once and you learn that, and then you're not going to open up to that person, like you said, again. And so, especially when this is our partner or our children, we need to make sure we can be their safe space. That's our role. I mean, it should be in an ideal world, right?
Yeah.
We want
without
our kids,
them feeling like we want our kids to know that they can come to us for things where they're just venting, and it takes practice. I remember in my 20s, like, I would talk to my dad sometimes about things and he would think that I wanted him to fix it. And I just wanted him to, like, listen, and he'd be giving me advice that I feel like was making it way worse, and we just have to know, like, based on how they're talking to us, like, when is the time that they're really truly asking for help, advice, or where are they just looking for, like, a safe space to try and to just let it out a little bit,
Well, and if our kids, especially if they're younger or teenagers, and even into young adulthood, I would say we want to be a place that's safe for them to come and share things that are going on in their lives. Because if they're in a situation where they're being abused, they're in danger, something's making them uncomfortable, and if they know that they've come to us with stuff in the past, and we've said, well, what did you expect to happen? I can't believe you did this. Even if it's like, hey, I crashed the car, or hey, I came in late from curfew, like, whatever it is, I got drunk at this high school party. I'm not saying those things are small things. They're not. But if our immediate reaction is to place blame and freak out, and we close that door so tightly, instead of saying, okay, where are you? I'm coming to get you, and we'll talk about this later, but, like, I'm here for you right this minute. And we are so having that conversation later, but not in that moment when they just need you.
Yeah.
And it's hard to do.
It's
really hard to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the first step to be holding space for someone, anyone in your life, this is really hard in today's world with social media and our smartphones and everything that's going on, and how busy we are, is to just be fully present. When you start to feel a conversation is going in that direction, and the person, you can tell by body language, by emotion in the voice, you can tell when someone is feeling really vulnerable sharing something with you, and is trying to build up to saying something that maybe is scary for them to talk about, or they're uncomfortable talking about it, but they're getting to the point where they want to. You just need to be absolutely fully present. Put your phone down, focus on them. Don't be thinking, and our minds are always racing, right? And don't be thinking in our minds of what you want to say next in response. Just literally just listen. That's, I think, the main thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And because they also are looking to you to see if, like, you're listening as well. Like, that way you can fully be there to support them. So when they give you, like, little, like, pieces of information. How often have our kids been talking to us sometimes, and they're telling us a story, and we're like, and there was, like, a question, and we're like, and they're like, you weren't even listening, like, you need to be fully present. You need to put your things away. You need to not be distracted by anything else, and just, like, listen to the words that are coming out of this person's mouth, because they are confiding in you, and that's hard to do for anyone, no matter who you are,
Yeah. And if you can kind of fine tune that skill of communication with yourself, where you get attuned to people's body language and people's emotion, and kind of figure out when those moments are, it helps you, because we can't be fully present at every moment in every conversation. It's not feasible. I mean, we have to be thinking about, what am I going to make for dinner? And oh my gosh, so-and-so has soccer practice tonight. And hey, I've got to remember to pick up that wedding present for this weekend. Like, we always are thinking, but if we can build that communication skill, that serves us in every aspect of our lives, because people pick up on when you're listening. So whether you're in a business meeting or you're sitting down with a girlfriend or it's one of the kids, and you can turn that on to really be focused and listening to that person, and what they're telling you might make you uncomfortable. They might be talking about something that you are not comfortable with.
Yeah. And your safe space might be to play with your phone or pick up your phone
or fidget, move around, pick at your nails, look away. Looking away is a big one.
Let's all grow up for 5 flipping minutes here and realize that because of social media and our phones, like, we've all become like distracted toddlers that can't control themselves and sit in their seats and be like, what the heck happened to us? You know, like, I realize that and it sometimes happens when people get uncomfortable. It's their go-to, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, but just know that, like, there's a big part of you that wants your best friend to confide in you, and you want to be that person, but it does require you to be a little uncomfortable maybe. So just understand that might happen.
And it really, really requires you to put your own judgments and your own lens of how you look at the world to the side, because people can tell if you're feeling judgment. And maybe your first instinct is to think, oh my gosh, like, how could she have done that? Or what was she thinking? Or like, oh, I would never be in that position because I do this and that. You have to set that aside and meet people where they're at, because they're coming to you and they're being vulnerable, and nobody is perfect. I'm sure if you shared some things that you do in your life that you're not proud of, they would be thinking the same things. Like, how could she do that? We all, you know, have strengths and weaknesses. So if someone's coming to you and they're talking to you about something that is a weakness, is a vulnerability, you have to set your judgments to the side so that you can be fully present, hold space for that person. Holding space is a non-judgmental space. I mean, if your kid wants to come to you and tell you they're having suicidal ideations, or they're experimenting with drugs, or they, I don't know, sent naked pictures to some boy at school, like, it could be horrible. They might be coming to you telling you something that is shocking to you, is against everything you thought was possible. Like, you have to set it aside and make sure that they feel safe sharing it with you. You can process it later. You can have a further conversation later about, like, you know, how to prevent these situations and making better choices. Yes, have that conversation at some point. But in that moment when they're really raw, you can hear it in the tone of their voice. You can hear it in, I mean, even the rhythm of their speech changes. Like, you have to just listen and say, okay, we're going to get through this. We're going to, you know, figure this out. Like, just be there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's really, really hard.
It's the first step is probably the hardest step, but once you've mastered that, then you're a great example of it. They're coming to you at all stages of their life with all types of things, in all situations where they know that they can come to you for support. They can come to you for advice. They can come to you as just like a sound box, just to like listen to them, a shoulder to cry on. And that, as a parent or as a friend or as a partner, is really what we all want. We want that person in our life that we care about to know that we are there for them on all levels, you know? So yes, the first step is like the hardest, but it is the one that requires, you know, the person to feel the most safe in that moment, you know, is like, if you're fully present, then they know that if they come to you, they're being truly listened to. There's a difference between like talking to someone and then know that the person that they're like, you know, when you have conversations and the person, the way that their mannerisms, the way that they're looking at you, you know that they're like literally engaged, and you're like, I bet that person doesn't even have a social media, you know, because they're so people present, you know, and we all love that type of person, and we're all slowly becoming farther and farther away from that person because we're more and more attached to this, you know. So when you can master that skill, then a lot of people will see you as that person that really truly listens. Or if they really want advice, they know that you're listening and that you're going to give them advice that's solid. You're not just like on autopilot, you know. Like, it's such a great feeling to have, because I do have friends that are not like that, where I'm just like, why waste my time? You're not even paying attention. And if you are, you're thinking about what you have to do later, which is fine. but it's a little immature. And I think it just happens from us being so needed in a billion different ways. Like we never just slow down anymore, that even when we need to slow down for the people we care about the most, we don't really know how to slow down,
Yeah. And I think if we can learn to do this, we're also benefiting from it. Not only are we, being there for someone that we care about, but we're growing as a person. We're becoming deeper connection. We're having deeper connections. We're becoming a better listener. We're becoming more empathetic. I mean, there are so many, and we're not saying that you can do this all the time. There will be times people have come to me at times, even my own kids, with some issue. And it was one of those days where I was just at maximum capacity.
Absolutely.
And I didn't have the words for it at the time. I would say, I can tell this is important to you. Can we talk about it later? It's been a crazy day.
Yeah.
But now, I mean, people talk about, I don't have the bandwidth, which I wish I had that language back then. I didn't.
I just think that's a little insensitive too. Like, I don't know the bandwidth. Like, okay, but I understand. It's like, what if you yourself just had like an equally, if not crappier day, and that person doesn't want to hear that you've had a bad day and you don't have time for their stuff. But like it cannot always be the most convenient of times for you. There's a way for them to still feel like they're important.
Yeah. I think most people would sympathize or understand if you told them, look, this sounds really important and I want to be here for you. I'm a little distracted right now though. Can we revisit this like later today or tomorrow, or because nobody wants to have somebody who's halfway there for them.
Yeah.
So one thing that is, I mean, I know it was an issue for me, is that sometimes what the person is telling you can trigger your own issues. Maybe, that specific subject is triggering for you and you're not the best person to hold space in that situation. Or maybe it just triggers like your own insecurities and then you need to kind of really work harder to put yourself on the back burner and just be present for someone else. I mean, I know that at times when my kids came to me and told me things that I, definitely didn't want to hear, my brain immediately went to me. I'm a bad mom because this happened. Where did I fail? Like I should have just seen this. I should have done that. Like that's where your head goes sometimes. To tell you they've done something or they've lost their job or I don't know. And your head immediately goes to how are we going to pay. But we have to have enough self-control to kind of just push it down for a minute so we can hold space for that person. And then later on we can have our complete freak.
Yeah.
I would go in the back. Of course, it's natural and kind of our complete freak out. Like, yeah, that's happened a few times. But now call me from anywhere in the world and tell me they had done anything, and I would jump to all calm. Never had to worry that if they called me in the middle of the night and said, I crashed the car, I got arrested, I did this, that I was going to scream and yell and say, how could you? Like, no. There will be time for me to sit you down and have a talk with you, but in that moment is not the time, because I wanted to be the one they called. What if they didn't call me? What if they called a friend or they tried to hide it? I mean, when I was a teenager, I hid everying from my father because I did not feel it was a safe space for me to come and say, hey, I screwed up.
It was the same way with my mom. Like, I just like, she was never, and she was a great mom, but I think it would probably crush her to know that like, it was not a safe space because I was just always instantly punished, instantly judged, instantly wrong, like it sucked, so, and I hid everything, so as a mom, this is a very important topic because I want my kid, no matter what the subject is, to know that they have a safe, that they have this space that they can come to and, be what it may, talk and know that they have someone there, because it sucks out there sometimes.
And the truth is, if you are raising kids who are conscientious human beings, which is what we all try to do, there's nothing you can say to them that they haven't already said to themselves. They're already ashamed. They're already embarrassed. They know they screwed up. There's nothing you can point out to them that they don't already know. They know they really messed up. And so you want them to get that, be honest, because when kids that's when really bad things happen. So
yep,
we want to avoid that. And then, that I have probably the biggest problem with when I try to share things with people or be vulnerable with people myself is, one of the things with when people kind of downplay whatever my issue is, or a lot of people feel like it's going to be comforting to tell someone who's hurting that other people have it worse, and problem because it'll solve itself, or I'm overreacting or whatever. Any time that they try to like de-escalate your feelings or devalue your feelings, that is probably my biggest pet peeve or trigger when I'm trying to share something with someone, because it feels like invalidating. And yes, there is always someone who has it worse, but unless you're that one person on the planet who's in the worst circumstances of the other 7 billion people, there's one person who's like has it worse than the other 7 billion people. But is he the only one who gets to complain?
Amen.
I don't think so.
Also, like, our brains kind of already think that. We're like, how bad, like, how dare us complain that like this happened when other people are like, especially in our world right now, where we see things literally happening to other people that are awful. But
Yes.
also, and our minds are also like, does that mean I don't have any right to have this feeling? Like, it's a weird place to be, but so when you say it to someone, hi, we've already thought it, probably like already feel guilty for feeling bad about our feelings, but you're right. Like, one person gets to be the person to be like,
nobody else can complain.
No one's ever broken it down like that, because like, for real, we've all heard that like someone else has it worse than you. Yeah, probably. Chances are, So no, we don't get to have this talk. Then never mind. I'm fine. Thank you for pointing that out. Welcome to like being a person of 20s and up now. Like, we never got to really feel our feels as children, because it was always like, you are fine. Just rub some dirt on it. Somebody else has it worse than you. Kids in Africa are starving. Eat blah blah blah. You're like, okay. You're like, never mind. Like, sorry.
Or when I was your age, I had to walk to school uphill both ways. And
it was either they had it shittier, or someone who we don't know also has it shittier. So shut up about it. And now it's like, we're all feeling it and aware of it and okay with talking about our feelings, and amen to that, because we all needed space held for us too, but we didn't get it. It was like, what do you got to complain about, right?
Yeah, and all those people who have, anxiety or depression, and sometimes they're having these feelings without even a reason for it. And for them not to feel like they have the right to express that or to feel those feelings, that's not right either. That's what makes people feel really isolated, and isolation is the most dangerous thing for people who are suffering from anxiety or depression. I mean, you need a support system. And if your support system is telling you, you have a great life, nothing's wrong, that's not going to do it, man.
I can tell you from personal experience, having anxiety and having that feeling, like, you already feel like you're in a prison, like you just need someone to like make you feel like you're not this freak of a person, and so it's just a weird thing to feel. And then for someone to kind of like make it smaller, or trying to make it smaller than what it is by using the example that someone that you actually have a great life, you're like, okay. What do you say after that? There's nothing that will actually, and then start to list things. It's like, it's we all know you're trying to make the person like, when you like, things are the end of the world and then you eat a sandwich and you're like, I was just hungry. Like, when you're like, when it's not your problem, you think, oh, maybe if I just lighten it a little, the person will realize like it all will work out. Like, we get that the reason you're doing it is because you care, but we're all just pointing out the things that like, this is so like the anti what we want to happen,
Yeah. It's
because the receiving end makes it feel not the same as what you're trying to get to them. Right.
Exactly. And, this whole process, this whole idea of holding space for people is really hard. I know we keep saying that, but like, think about all the things that we've told you go into it. It's really hard. You have to be fully present. You have to be supportive without giving advice, without having judgment, without, doing any kind of sharing or comparisons. You have to let it be all about that person at that moment and be fully engaged and focused. And then you have to set all your judgments aside and you have to just listen. I mean, it's very hard. And I think that's why we have such a small amount of people in our lives who can be that person for us. I mean, I can't have those conversations with everybody. I have a select few people who I would go to and I would say, I'm going through it today. Like, and most of the time, at least for me, like when I'm talking to other adults, whether those adults are my children or my sister or my friends or my partner or whatever, unless they ask me for my advice, I just listen. I don't give it. I'm happy to give it. I usually know, a solution or two that might help, but unless they ask me for it.
My advice is solid as hell. I just don't give it. Like, some people are like, dude, I don't give advice because every time I do and they do it, it's wrong. Like, you're like, no, I got good advice. I just know when I read the room, It's
me and my life. I've been through it.
Yeah. So oh yeah. If there's anyone that could give like absolutely solid advice about most things, it's for sure you. It's just, like you also know that not everyone wants it, or maybe a lot of us have already made our decision on the situation. Yeah. We just kind of want to get it out of our system, or we need someone else to know about what's going on, or we need to see their, like, sometimes our words and our physical reactions don't always meet. So sometimes you might say like, oh, like, I'm so happy that you met that person and you're having an affair and you might be leaving your husband, but your initial reaction is like, holy shit, with like your eyebrows and everything. Yeah. Like they're just looking to see what their person in their mind is experiencing about their experience. And sometimes they're not even listening to what your words are. They're just kind of like watching what you're doing. So yeah, it's like the hardest thing to do, because we're all selfish creatures that all come from our personal experiences, and our minds, like the little brain that's inside our little mind, like voice inside our head, doesn't ever stop talking. And the minute we hear their situation, we instantly have solutions running, our own opinions running inside our own head. It's just like, don't have them come out sometimes, unless asked.
Like you said. Yeah, and like people ask, like I love to help people.
Yeah,
people
or
ask,
if you're that person to like, they know they need your advice. Like, sometimes it's just like an older sister. Sometimes, that's like true. Then share it. But be mindful when sharing about what you're saying.
Yeah,
too.
I will say this: I have offered unsolicited advice, but usually I try to soften it and say something like, I'm sure you are aware of this, or you probably already have a solution, but when our situation happened, here's what I did.
Yeah. And it doesn't make it seem so bossy, right. Like this is what you should do. It's like, it makes a person think they're grown up enough to have their own thing about it, but hey, here's my perception. You may not have they may be so happy you're sharing, but it makes it seem like they can handle it on their own, and that's nice.
Yeah, because it can come across as really condescending, and that's definitely not what you're going for. And I think, like you said, most people, by the time they're talking openly about something, they've already come up with a few solutions of their own to try, and really they're just venting, or they're just looking for someone to go, wow, that's horrible. Like, what a jerk. Like,
they're just looking for confirmation, or they're just looking to get it out of something, but most people have already either made their decision, or they're battling between two, and they're having that discussion with you because they really trust your judgment, and they want to see what you will do with that information, whether that's how your body language is or how you're actually verbalizing what your opinion is,
Yeah. And I would really caution people, you touched on this, but I would really caution people that if someone comes to you, a child, a friend, a sister, whatever, and is asking for your input about their personal relationships, really think hard about whether or not to answer that, because the thing is, they're going to do what they want to do in the end of the day, regardless of what you say, but they will remember what you said. So if you tell them, oh, I've always hated that guy anyway, you should totally dump him, and they stay with
together,
him, they're going to remember that forever.
It happens. We've seen it on TV. Like, it happens. And then they remember that, and then they get married to the person, and then they're like, oh my God, you like hated that person. You know what I mean? Like, it's so awkward. So just be careful. But also, don't be too afraid. If it's your best friend and they're in a really toxic situation and they're finally opening up to things that you've kind of felt for a while, like that's what we do with our tribe. We're there
Yeah.
for our tribe. So, find the most mature job interview-ish way to like say what you need to say without it getting too like, when we're like two or
Yeah.
three drinks in and it's really personal and really
Yeah.
detailed, and then you come out of that going like, oh, like just be there for the person as best you can without it becoming too one-sided on your end, because it just,
Absolutely. And you may have heard some information in the past that kind of confirms what they're thinking, but you didn't have confirmation of it. You weren't going to go to them with just unsubstantiated information and destroy their world.
yeah.
But that's a good time to kind of steer them in a safe direction, because people, it's really a tough line to draw as a friend. Like, how much do we tell people when it's all rumors
as
and
friends that you're like kind of in tune to, and when they start to like, whether it's physical abuse or someone cheating, for example, or something, like you notice certain things, but you don't want to, like you said, destroy their world or be wrong or give unnecessary drama to a situation that maybe doesn't need it. But if they're finally coming to you and was like, we had this big fight and he like, threw me down on the ground or something like that, you'd be like, well, that's your moment to like kind of put the pieces together and steer them, like you say, in a direction that they kind of like come to the conclusion on their own. Because if they don't listen and you push too hard, and then that you come out of it the next day with a lot of ickiness.
Yeah, if they push them to make a decision they're not ready for, they will hold you responsible for that. And they can, at least, and then later say, well, you told me to do this and now I'm miserable. And so you want to be really, really careful. And you can tell them like, I'll support you no matter what you do, but I think that you deserve better than this, or whatever it is that you're trying to say. Soften it, for one. Give yourself kind of an out, because they could go the other direction, and that your relationship with them could completely fall apart. Yeah. And that's a really hard place to be.
Yeah. This is like in the for better or worse category. This is the for worse category, holding space, because it's such an honor, but it's so emotionally like it requires such emotional maturity that you're almost like, I don't know if I want to be that, because I'm too opinionated, or I'm too, like my brain is too scattered. Like it takes a lot, but man, you just need one person like that in your life. Truly. It's like, it's typically a best friend or an aunt or a big sister or something. Everybody needs just that person that they have, and if you can be that one person for that person, then chances are they can be that one person for you. It's almost reciprocated. And it's really nice when you have that person, because life throws you some crazy stuff, and you don't want to have to feel like you have to walk through it alone. I know a lot of people, that's why therapy is so great, because you have this person that
I was just going to say that. Yeah.
Everything to. So if literally everyone in your life, even your best friend, is just like a chatterbox who, can like, and that's okay. You don't need, not everybody, like, it sucks. It's nice to have this type of person, but unfortunately sometimes you don't have anyone in your life like that. Then therapist just to go in and talk about the things is really great, because they are trained for this kind of stuff.
Yeah. And it allows you to kind of work through your own thoughts before you talk to anyone else about this issue. So then when you do decide to share this with your partner, your best friend, your, sister, whatever, you feel like you have your thoughts more concise and you can explain it better. But I do want to just kind of say before we wrap up that you also have to protect your own emotional energy. I am super budgeted with my emotional energy. I am
budgeted. I love that term.
My circle of trust is like a lowercase o, and I love it there. And
oh my gosh.
I have a rule with my girlfriends where, they're allowed to vent out to me, or I will sit and hold space for them a maximum of 3 times for the same subject. Ooh. So if they have that bad boyfriend they keep going back to, or that job they hate and they just won't quit, I'll sit there with them and I'll listen and I'll be engaged, and if they want advice, I'll give it to them 3 times. And after that, if they've chosen not to take anybody's advice or to act on their own thoughts and they want to stay in that space, I'm still there. I'm still their friend and I'm still 100% there, but we just don't talk about that particular issue like that anymore.
It's like beating a dead horse. It's like, what do I say now at this point that I haven't already said to you? Because if I say anything, even like, I'm so sorry you're going through that, it's, to me, you're going to read super not genuine, because it's like, why have you not listened to me? Like, you know what I mean? So that's a really good way, because a lot of people, they get really just like, there's some resentment that builds up in friendship, because you're just like, oh, you complaining about the same boyfriend again that we already discussed was a bad idea. Like, yeah, that's good. Then just don't talk about it, you know?
Yeah. And we think we all have that friend drain, because the conversation is always about them and their issues over again. So if we have that hard stop and everybody agrees to it, then sometimes the conversation, or sometimes it can be, about plan together. We just stay off the topics that are kind of hot button issues, because we've talked about them. We didn't make progress, and so we're letting it go, and it doesn't affect our friendship moving forward, and nobody has bad feelings and resentment, hopefully. So it's okay to have boundaries. It's okay to have boundaries. Of course, something you don't have to let people trauma dump on you every time you see them. That's not what we're talking about tonight.
Absolutely not, because it's draining, like you said, for both parties. And it's also something that can be dealt with through therapy. If the person truly doesn't want to take the advice of you or the people they've talked to, you don't still have to be that person that they just like listen to all the time. It's like, and we all know that person. Man, I wish I knew about this 3-time rule a lot sooner. That's great.
No, I do have friends that I don't apply that rule to. I have friends who are going through some very bad life circumstances, who have just lost their partner.
That's not a 3-time and done situation. You come at me how long you want. That's fine.
Because there's no solution to offer that person.
No, and they already know that talking about it over and over is maddening, but also something that we just feel we need to do, and we can't explain it, and sometimes it's so weird. I don't know. There's a lot of things we do with those traumatic moments that are just, we got to get and work through them. And then one day we come out a little more clear, but this is not the same. That's not the same.
And I had a friend stay at our house, maybe like a month ago, and he lost his partner in a very bad way 2 years ago, and he was talking to me about how like he feels like he's not fun to be around anymore, and he's sad all the time, and he wants to talk about her, but no one brings it up, and he just feels like he's lost so many friendships over the awkwardness of it. And it's so sad, but and it's such you'll get this analogy because you're a Disney fan. We have sometimes Eeyores in our world, and we just need to let them exist and meet them where they are, right? We're not going to try to cheer them up. This is not a situation you can cheer people up from. Just including them, just remembering them and asking them to be in your space, even if they're sad, even if they're not funny, even if they're, they're bringing everybody down. Yeah. Why are you letting that affect you? Because this person is where they are. So just including them, just letting them still be part of our lives, and accepting them for where they're at, and not expecting them to wear a mask of like public happiness so that they don't make us uncomfortable. I mean, that's not fair either. So we want to make sure that the people in our lives who are, really going through it, whether it doesn't have to be something that extreme, it could just be like depression.
No, but I think we all feel invincible to these things. I mean, we all literally, truly feel invincible. It doesn't take much. It takes a very freak accident to lose your whole family in a matter of seconds. And you understand and the horribleness of it. But when you're instantly put in it, then you truly understand the person who it took them years, because we hear about things in the news, people dying in the news, and we sit on it for a while and then we move on, right? But that person, the family of those people, they're forever affected by it. We've all moved on. We can't just forever sit in the sadness. I get that, but we can't just put them on this like island of like you know, like we put them on this like island of misfit toys almost, where
Right.
like they don't fit in our lives because it like brings our barbecue down. It's like, hi, they lost like everything in a matter of seconds. Like put yourself in their shoes for 2 seconds, you know, and think of how long would it take you to get over, you know, like just find your way again, you know,
Yeah.
because it's literally like getting knocked right off your feet in the worst way.
Yeah.
You
And
know?
so in my opinion, holding space for people like that who are going through something that they probably won't get over
No.
or move on from, is literally just
I lost friendships like that, you know,
yeah,
because
just
I
including
never
them.
got happier quick enough for them again after my mom died. And I
Mhm.
was like, well, cool. Like this doesn't even feel like it's like, it's not even like in my, it is in my control and it isn't. I was seeing therapy. Like I wasn't just sitting with it, but also, you know, it made other people uncomfortable. And part of me was like, fine, you know, because I can't fix this. I can't change this, but people do that because depression, you know, losing someone, it's hard to be, I'm sorry, it is hard to be around. It is hard to be around as the person who's in the room with that person, because no amount of comforting we know can fix it or do anything or make it better. But we also don't want them to feel alone, but we also it's such a hard thing.
Yeah. And
you know?
people go through debilitating medical issues, people go through grief, people go through depression. There's a lot of reasons that someone isn't the life of the party.
Yeah.
But the fact that you still include them and you let go of the expectations of them being, you know, everybody's good time girl or whatever is really
best.
important.
Because we all know it's coming. We, you know, by we, I mean
Every one of
people,
us is going to be affected by loss in our lives. Every one of us. So if you think you're untouchable from that, then, you know, the universe is going to have a hard lesson for you. And so all I can say is that in those circumstances, holding space for that person might be a long-term thing. And it might just mean including them and maintaining the relationship. Maybe that's all you have to do to make that person feel like they still matter.
And not coming up to them and being like, is everything okay? Like not like trying to baby them in those moments too. Like bringing them, you know, when you bring someone like that out and then you expect them to be as excited as everyone else in those moments, like just sometimes simply having the invitation come your way and being there, like it takes a lot of effort for them to even be there, you know.
Again,
so just,
the Eeyore analogy, right?
Yeah,
they always included him.
he had a little hat and he was always sad, but it was like his birthday too. And he was like, oh,
but he got invited to every single thing.
He made it out. He went, he came out of his little log that was always being rained on.
I don't remember a single time when they said, why can't you be more like Tigger? They Eeyore was just Eeyore, and that was okay. So that's an important aspect of holding space for someone, is meeting them where they're at. And we all want someone to see us for who we really are and to hear us and to say, like, you're good the way that you are. Like, I see you for who you are. I care about you the way that you are. That's what all of us want, like, ultimately, right? And that's
total acceptance from the people whose opinions and our viewpoints matter most, right?
Yeah.
You know, and like, because that matters. Like what we think about ourselves should matter most. But then, you know, we have this circle of people in our lives that, you know, we really just want to feel fully accepted, that we can fall apart, go through stuff, bad and good, and just they have space for us in their life. And it comes with a space of, you know, safety and trust, that we know that when we go there, we're not going to be judged or teared down or diminished by, you know, some perspective they had growing up. We don't want that, you know. This is what we all truly need, and we all need this, and we all want this. So when somebody asks that from you, be sure to, like we do unto others as you want done unto you. You know, treat that situation in the same way you would want that thrown onto you, you know.
Absolutely. So I think that, you know, the topic today was something that was really important, and it's something that, you know, we all can continuously work on with ourselves. I still work on it. I think I've mentioned this before, but there are times when my kids call me and they're having some issue, and I have to actually ask them, do you want my advice or do you just want to vent? And a lot of times they just want to vent, and then that's fine.
It's such an important question though, because if you just assume one way and you get it wrong, a kid, like I said, it can really push the person in such a negative space where they're not even listening to you anymore. They're kind of just like upset that it didn't go the way that they thought it was going to go. We
how I
already have
learned.
high expectations. And then my dad's going like, what the heck did I do wrong? I'm like, I didn't need your flipping advice. I just needed you to listen.
Yeah.
And he's just like, well, like, because we as parents, as friends, we all just want to do the right thing. But if you do the wrong one, oh boy, it could go so wrong, you know?
And that's how I learned that, because
don't be afraid to ask.
That's my default, right? I want to jump in and solve. But I mean, thankfully, my older daughter is a really strong advocate for herself. And I would jump in and be like, well, you should do this. And she'd be like, yeah, I know. I already started doing that. I just called you so you can say, wow, your boss is such a bitch. And I can feel better. And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. And she said
sorry.
it to you in a way where it wasn't like, I said it to a way in my dad where it started like this epic argument. It wasn't like, because I was coming from a place of hurt and anger where I wasn't being truly understood or heard. But she said it in a way to you where you're instantly like, oh, slight misstep in the wrong direction, because she was like emotionally mature enough to handle that moment. You know, not all of us are like that. So just don't be afraid to ask that question.
It's an important question.
Yeah.
And if the person says they just want to vent, you know, you can still participate in the conversation, and you can say things like, you know what, you've dealt with way harder things than this, and you've totally killed it. So I know you've got this, or I trust whatever decision you make. I know, you know, it's all going to work out for the best. Let me know if you need anything, but I'm here. Like, just encouraging. You kind of want to be the cheerleader and let them know that they totally have this covered. And sometimes that's what they need to work it out. Sometimes they don't already have a solution. Sometimes they need you to kind of pep talk them, and they will come to the solution on their own. And then think about how empowering that is, especially for our children, when we tell them, you know what, whatever decision you make, I know is going to be the right one, because I've seen you, you know, deal with way bigger stuff than this. And you seem to always make good decisions. And then when they make that decision, especially if they're waffling between a good and a bad decision, because they know which one is the good one. When they make that good decision, they're going to feel like so
they did
empowered
it on their own. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the next time something like that comes up, they're going to be like, I got this.
Yeah. Do you want to keep getting maybe, but do you want to keep getting calls when they're 36, 37 for every small, because they don't feel like they can make a decision like that on their own without you? Sometimes they need to know that they have this, and they just need like a few examples of when they've actually been in this similar situation and they've completely been okay, because we doubt ourselves always, you know. We're our least biggest cheerleader in life. Sometimes we just need proof that we've like, you know, been through crazy stuff and we've come out okay. So you've absolutely got this, you know. And it's just that words of encouragement that we need to hear sometimes, and not any bit of advice or questions or, you know, decision making on our end. Just kind of like,
and especially not judgment. Like,
no,
well, if you hadn't done that, then you wouldn't be dealing with this. Like, we know that.
Yeah.
We know.
Think it all you freaking want. Just don't say it, you know. Don't make you know, you can free mind all the time, but like, just be careful with the words that you choose to come out of your mouth, you know.
Or if you have adults in your life who are fully capable of problem solving, but still expect you to solve the problems for them, that is a thing that happens.
Yeah.
It's also okay to tell people like how much you totally trust that they've got this, and then let them do it on their own, or even say, you know what, first of all, you try whatever you were thinking of doing. If you hadn't have been able to get a hold of me, what would you have done? Try that. And if that doesn't work, then call me back and we'll problem solve together. That you've got to empower them to make some mistakes that they learn from, and some good decisions too.
It's like when your kids ask you your help for homework, you know, most of the time they're going to try and get you to tell you the answer right off the bat. You ask them questions so that they know they can do it on their own, because like my oldest is always trying to get me to answer her questions on her homework for her. And I'm like, even though I know, because she's just, the second that she second guesses the process, she wants me to show her. And then all of a sudden I'm doing homework, and then she doesn't know that she can actually do it on her own, you know, and then she's afraid to make a mistake, or she's afraid to do it wrong. And I'm like, oh, well, how would you do it? Or, you know, talk it through. And so adults need that too. Sometimes they just need to know that they can take a problem, that they can break it down and they can solve it without you catching them from some fall that they're fearing might happen, you know?
Yeah. And if they come to you and they've tried something and it made it worse or it didn't help, it, you know, still encourage and say, I'm proud of you for trying that. You came up with a solution on your own and you tried it, and that, you know, takes courage. let's see what else we can do. But
Absolutely.
you never want to discourage people from trying to solve their own problems. I work with foster kids who have zero control over their lives, and everybody micromanages them and tells them what to do at what time, and then this and then that. And they have not built the ability to solve their own problems. So it's amazing when you walk them through the problem solving process, or you give them options and explain to them the pros and cons of each option, that I've seen that empowerment and what it does for someone's confidence level, independence. Like there's so many benefits to it, whether you're an adult or still, a child. It's
Absolutely.
amazing.
Yeah. We all just need to know that life can throw us. I mean, like we were talking about resilience last time. Life can throw us some big and small stones, and we can take them. We all want to feel that. Nobody likes to feel like they have to call their friend or their dad or this to fix their way through this one. We all, but sometimes we're so used to it that it's just our go-to and our safe space, that sometimes we need that little bit of kick towards independence to realize that we can do this,
Yeah, that's exactly. Sometimes we're going to make mistakes, and that's how we learn. We say, thank you, universe, for the lesson. And then we move right on.
Exactly.
Well, thank you guys for joining us today. We always appreciate chatting with you. We love to see all of you that come back every week. I can't tell you how much it means to us, that we're not just screaming into the void. And if you guys want to talk more about this subject, like we always tell you, you can go to Facebook and search She's a Full-On Monet. You'll find our page there with an attached discussion group where we love to hear your guys' opinions on all the topics that we talk about, or suggestions for new topics. We'd love to hear that as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. So thank you guys so much, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode. Don't forget to bookmark our site, she'safullonmonet.com, and subscribe to our newsletter. You can also find us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. If you're enjoying this podcast, it helps us a lot if you can follow, rate, and review. See y'all next week.